Okay, let's unpack this. Today, we are diving deep into PRINCE2. It's probably one of the most, well, widely used project management methods out there, globally, really.
It really is. You see it everywhere.
Yeah, and for a lot of people, I think it can seem like this really dense, complicated rule book.
Definitely daunting at first glance.
But what we want to do today is look at it as, a framework that's actually built on a huge amount of experience. We're talking thousands of projects, contributions from countless professionals.
Exactly. And our goal today, it isn't just to read the manual back to you, not at all. It's more about cutting through some of that complexity, getting to the core structure.
Right.
So that you, our listener, can walk away with that foundational knowledge. Whether you're, say, a project executive needing to understand governance.
Or maybe a project manager just starting out, setting up your very first PRINCE2 project.
Or even, someone experienced in Agile, maybe looking for ways to integrate some, let's say, necessary external controls. This deep dive should really help. It's a shortcut.
So the mission, fundamentally, is to make you instantly, pretty well informed about how PRINCE2 is structured. We want you to understand the non-negotiables, the key things that have to happen, the stages a project goes through under this method, and specifically answer those really practical questions. What's expected of me in my role? What decisions do I actually get to make?
And crucially, who do I talk to when things inevitably don't go exactly to plan? Because they often don't.
Right. Something always comes up.
And having that clarity, it helps everyone. It helps the project board, obviously, but also the project office manager trying to get some standardization going.
Yeah.
Or the team manager who just needs to know, okay, what are the boundaries for what my team needs to deliver?
Okay. So that structure serves a lot of roles.
It does. And this brings us straight to this interesting paradox about PRINCE2. It's very structured, very defined.
But somehow it works everywhere. Any size project, any industry, anywhere in the world.
Yes. And that's the clever part. It achieves that universality, that adaptability in three very specific ways, structurally.
Okay. How does it do that? What's the trick?
Well, first, PRINCE2 makes a very conscious separation between the management of the project, the planning, the control, the governance, and the actual specialist work, the stuff that creates the end product. So designing, coding, building, whatever it is.
So PRINCE2 cares about, say, getting the budget signed off.
Exactly.
But it doesn't care if the team is building a bridge or writing software code.
Precisely. It provides the management container, if you like, but not the technical contents.
Got it. Okay, that's one. What's the second way?
The second way is that it focuses really hard on what needs to be managed. The required results, the necessary controls, the governance, outcomes you need to achieve. It doesn't prescribe how the specialist team should actually do their work. It's fundamentally delivery method agnostic.
Okay, so it's about the what, not the how of the actual building or creating.
Right. And the third way, and this is, maybe the most critical part when you actually apply it, is that the method insists that you tailor it.
Tailoring. I've heard that term a lot with PRINCE2.
It's fundamental. You must tailor it specifically for the project's needs, its context. PRINCE2 itself recognizes that applying the full, heavy structure to, say, a simple 3-month internal project would be completely inappropriate. Overkill.
So you use only the bits you need, the structure that fits.
Exactly. You use the structure you need and no more. That's the principle.
Okay, so to really grasp why PRINCE2 is set up the way it is, we probably need to back up a step. We need to understand why projects are, just inherently difficult. And why the normal rules of just running the business, gated business as usual, or BAU, why they just don't cut it for projects.
That's a great starting point. Because any organization that wants to succeed today, it faces this constant tension, right? You've got to keep the lights on, maintain your current operations, that's BAU. But you also have to transform those operations to stay relevant, competitive, that's business change.
And projects are how you do that change.
Projects are the vehicle. They're the engine for introducing purposeful, controlled change into the organization.
Okay. And PRINCE2 has a very specific definition here, doesn't it?
It does. Very pointed. It says a project is a temporary organization.
Temporary.
Created for the purpose of delivering one or more business products according to an agreed business case.
That word temporary really stands out. It immediately flags a difference from the permanent departments in the company.
Absolutely. It's crucial. And that temporary nature, it's really just the tip of the iceberg. If we dig into why projects are inherently challenging, it becomes really clear when you look at the 5 characteristics that define them, that make them different from BAU.
Okay, let's unpack those 5. because understanding these really makes the case for needing a dedicated method like PRINCE2.
Definitely. So first characteristic, change. As we said, projects are the means by which change is introduced. That's their reason for being.
Got change.
Second, temporary. They must have a defined start and a defined end. They aren't supposed to go on forever. The team is assembled for the project and then disbanded.
Okay. Makes sense. What's third?
Third, cross-functional. And honestly, this is where things often get tricky in the real world.
Yeah. Getting different departments to play nicely together.
Exactly. You're pulling people from marketing, engineering, finance, operations. They might report to different bosses, have different priorities, different ways of working, different skills.
And you need them to suddenly form a cohesive team.
Precisely. And work together effectively in this new temporary setup. It's a big ask.
Okay, cross-functional. That's a big one. Number 4.
Fourth is unique. Every single project, even if it looks similar to one you did before, is unique in some way. Well, maybe the team is different, or the customer, or the location. Perhaps the time frame is tighter, or the specific constraints have changed. You can't just repeat the last project by rote and expect the same outcome.
Okay. Uniqueness. And the last one.
Fifth, and this throws from the others, is uncertainty. Because you're introducing change, doing something unique, possibly for the first time, projects naturally carry more threats and more opportunities risks than routine day-to-day operations. They're inherently riskier.
Wow. Okay, so you take that mix. It's temporary. It involves cross-functional teams who aren't used to working together. Every project is unique, and it's packed with uncertainty.
Yeah.
You can really see why just applying standard departmental management approaches would probably fail.
Right.
It sounds like a recipe for confusion.
It is. It leads directly to the classic project problems. Ambiguity about what needs to be done, stakeholders having completely unrealistic expectations.
The constant battle for resources, right? People being pulled in different directions.
Yeah. Absolutely. Resource tug-of-wars. And the big one, uncontrolled change. Scope creep, where the project just grows and grows without proper control.
Right.
And that environment, that whole set of challenges, is exactly why something like PRINCE2 exists. That's the whole point of project management.
So project management, as PRINCE2 sees it, is applying methods, tools, techniques, competencies.
Yes, all of that, to enable the project to actually meet its objectives. It's about unifying those diverse groups, making the objectives crystal clear, setting up working practices that directly address those inherent challenges we just talked about.
Okay, so we've established projects are tricky beasts, different from BAU.
Inherently challenging.
So the next logical step in a structured method like PRINCE2 must be defining what success actually looks like for a project. How do we measure it?
Exactly. And for PRINCE2, success is tied directly to the project's performance target. What level of performance are we aiming for?
And tied to that is this idea of tolerances, right?
Yes, tolerances are absolutely key. Think of it like this. The project manager is given a target for, say, cost or time. But they're also given an acceptable range of deviation around that target. That's the tolerance.
So maybe the target budget is £100,000, but there's a tolerance of plus or minus 10%?
Precisely. And those tolerances do something really important. They establish the project's priorities implicitly. Maybe the time tolerance is 0, but the cost tolerance is larger. That tells you time is more critical.
And this is crucial for governance, isn't it? For managing upwards.
Hugely. It means the project board, the senior managers, they aren't constantly bothered with every tiny little issue or a minor delay.
Right. They only hear about the big stuff.
Exactly. This underpins one of the key PRINCE2 principles we'll get to later, called manage by exception. But the rule is, if the project is forecast to go outside its agreed tolerance for any of the key performance aspects, the project manager must escalate it. They don't have the authority to proceed outside tolerance.
Okay, that makes sense. It triggers a formal decision. So what are these performance aspects? You said 7.
Yes. PRINCE2 identifies 7 aspects of project performance that demand management attention. 7 targets.
All right, let's go through them. What's number 1?
Number 1 defines why the project even exists. Benefits.
The why.
Exactly. The core question is, why are we actually doing this project? What value will it bring? It focuses on the outcome, the positive changes the business expects to see after the project delivers.
So if those expected benefits disappear or shrink drastically?
Then the justification for the project might disappear too. It has to be constantly checked.
Okay, benefits. What's next? Probably the obvious ones.
Yeah. The classic constraints everyone knows. Costs. Can we actually afford this? And time. When is it going to be finished?
Great. Budget and schedule. Can't manage a project without those.
Then number 4, quality. This is about fitness for purpose. Will the thing we deliver actually do what it's supposed to do, meet the user's needs? It requires defining specific standards upfront.
Okay. And number 5.
Number 5 is scope. What exactly is this project delivering? And just as importantly, what is it not delivering? Defining those boundaries clearly is vital to prevent that scope creep we mentioned.
Scope. Got it. That leaves 2 more.
Number 6 addresses that inherent riskiness we talked about. Risk. The question here is, how much risk is the business actually willing to accept to achieve the benefits? PRINCE2 insists that risks, both threats and opportunities, aren't just noted down, but actively managed and owned by the governing body.
Okay, active risk management.
Right.
Makes sense. And the 7th one, you said it's quite modern.
Yes, the 7th target is sustainability. This asks, what's the project's wider impact on its environment? And that doesn't just mean ecologically.
So social impact, economic impact.
Exactly. Social, economic, maybe even institutional impacts. Our sources actually mention referencing things like the UN's 17 Sustainable Development Goals as a way an organization might frame this dimension when building their business case. It broadens the perspective beyond just the immediate deliverable.
That's interesting. So managing across all 7 benefits, costs, time, quality, scope, risk, and sustainability, it forces a really holistic view, doesn't it?
It does. It ensures you're constantly checking the value, the justification, the wider impact, not just obsessing over hitting the deadline or the budget number in isolation.
It keeps the focus on the business outcome.
Precisely. Success defined in business terms.
Now, you mentioned earlier that PRINCE2 is also important for what it doesn't cover. This sounds like a key point for project managers trying to focus their efforts.
It really is. That clarity about its boundaries is incredibly helpful. PRINCE2 is very clear. Things like industry-specific techniques, particular ways of doing construction or specific IT development methodologies or complex commercial contract models. PRINCE2 considers these specialist aspects. They are essential. They have to be integrated into the project. But PRINCE2 itself doesn't define how to do them. It provides the management framework for them.
Okay, so it manages the specialists, but doesn't tell them how to do their specialist job.
Exactly. And it applies that same thinking to a lot of detailed project management techniques you might find in other methodologies or bodies of knowledge.
Like what, for example?
Well, things like Kanban boards, writing user stories, critical path analysis for scheduling, earned value management for progress tracking. PRINCE2 acknowledges these are valuable, proven techniques.
Wow.
But it doesn't document them in detail within its own manual. It basically says, these are useful tools, go look them up elsewhere if you need them. It references them as supportive, but external.
Is there anything it does describe in detail technique-wise?
There's one major exception, PRINCE2's own unique planning technique. It has a very specific product-focused approach to planning that it does detail because it's integral to how the method controls scope and quality.
Okay, so we've got the why, the challenging project landscape. We've got the what to measure those 7 performance targets. Now let's get into the how, the actual structure of the PRINCE2 method itself.
Right, and this is where we see how it all fits together. PRINCE2 is built on 5 core elements that are completely integrated. They define the entire method.
5 elements. Okay, what are they?
They are the PRINCE2 principles, the role of people, the PRINCE2 practices, the PRINCE2 processes, and finally, the project context.
Principles, people, practices, processes, context.
And the key word there is integrated. You can't really pick and choose these successfully. They're designed to work together. If you try to take one out, the whole system of control and governance starts to weaken. It relies on all 5.
Okay, so let's start at the foundation. The PRINCE2 principles, you mentioned these earlier.
Yes, these are the bedrock. They are described as the 7 guiding obligations and good practices which determine whether the project is genuinely being managed using PRINCE2.
Obligations. So they're not optional suggestions.
Not at all. The official guidance is very clear. If any one of these 7 principles is not being applied on a project, then structurally, it's not a PRINCE2 project. It might be using some PRINCE2 terminology, but it's not the real deal.
Wow, okay. That's a strict definition. That's the acid test, then.
It is. So it's worth knowing what they are because they drive everything else.
All right, let's name them. Principle number 1.
Continued business justification.
We touched on this with the benefits target.
Exactly. It's paramount. There must be a justifiable reason for starting the project, and that justification has to remain valid, be checked, and be approved throughout the project's life.
So if the why disappears?
The project should stop. Or at least a formal decision needs to be made by the board to continue, knowing the original justification is gone. It forces that constant check on value.
Okay. Principle number 2.
Learn from experience. PRINCE2 mandates actively seeking out lessons from previous projects before you start, and also recording and acting on lessons learned during the project and at the end. It's about embedding continuous improvement.
Not just a lessons learned report at the very end that gathers dust.
Hopefully not. It should be an active process throughout. Third principle, defined roles and responsibilities.
This sounds crucial given the cross-functional nature of projects.
Absolutely. PRINCE2 requires a clear project management team structure. Everyone involved needs to know exactly what they're responsible for, who has accountability for results, and who is providing the necessary expertise or resources. It typically involves representing the business, user, and supplier interests.
Okay, clear roles. Number 4.
Manage by stages. This principle breaks the project down. Instead of trying to plan and control the whole thing from start to finish in one go.
Which seems impossible for anything complex.
Right. You plan, monitor, and control the project on a stage-by-stage basis. Each stage provides a control point for the project board to review progress and commitment before authorizing the next chunk of work.
Manageable chunks. Got it. Number 5.
Manage by exception. We mentioned this with tolerances.
Right, the board doesn't want every little detail.
Exactly. Authority is delegated from one management level down to the next, say, from the board to the project manager, giving them autonomy to manage within agreed tolerances for those 7 targets: cost, time, quality, scope, risk, benefits, sustainability.
But if things look like they'll go outside tolerance,
then the issue must be escalated immediately to the higher level for a decision. It keeps senior management focused only on the significant deviations, the exceptions.
efficient governance. Okay. Number 6.
Focus on products. This is a really key PRINCE2 differentiator. It shifts the focus away from just being busy doing activities
Ticking off tasks.
and puts it squarely on defining and delivering the actual products or deliverables that the project needs to create. What are they? What quality do they need to meet? How will we check them? You need to know what done looks like for the output.
Product focus. Okay.
Yeah.
And the last one, number 7.
Tailor to suit the project. We talked about this. It's the principle that ensures PRINCE2 is flexible. The way you apply the method, the roles, the processes, the documentation must be scaled appropriately for the project's specific environment, size, complexity, risk level, and the capability of the team involved.
So the principles tell you what you must always do.
Yes, the non-negotiables.
Then the second element you mentioned was people. How does that fit in?
Well, PRINCE2 explicitly acknowledges that projects are done by people, for people. Management structures, processes, tools, they're all useless if you don't consider the human element, understanding people's capabilities, their needs, how they communicate, what motivates them. That's central to making any project management approach actually work in practice.
Right. Common sense, but important to state. So principles and people. What was the third element?
The third element is the PRINCE2 practices. Think of these as the themes or essential aspects of project management that you have to apply consistently throughout the project's lifecycle. They are how you ensure the principles are being followed.
Okay, so the practices make the principles happen. How many are there and what are they?
There are 7 practices, and you'll see they align very closely with the principles and the performance targets we discussed.
Okay, that makes sense. What are they?
They are business case, which is all about developing, verifying, and maintaining the project's justification, linking to the continued business justification principle.
Got it.
Organization, defining the structure, the roles, the responsibilities, the communication lines, linking to the defined roles principle.
Okay.
Quality, defining the quality expectations, the acceptance criteria, and how assurance will be handled, linking to focus on products.
Right.
Plans. This covers how to create the different levels of plans needed, using that product-based technique we mentioned, linking to manage by stages and focus on products.
Mm-hmm.
Risk, the practice for identifying, assessing, and controlling uncertainty, linking to the risk target and continued business justification. Change how you handle issues, manage requests for change, and keep track of the project's products, configuration management. This links to controlling scope.
Makes sense.
And finally, progress, how you monitor where you are against the plan, manage those tolerances, and report progress, linking to manage by exception and manage by stages.
Okay, so those 7 practices are the management activities you're constantly doing. Business case, organization, quality, plans, risk, change, progress.
Exactly. You apply these practices throughout the project lifecycle.
Which brings us neatly to the 4th element. The PRINCE2 processes. These must describe that life cycle, right? When things happen.
Precisely. The 7 processes describe the flow of the project from the very beginning, even before it's formally approved, right through to the final closure. They define when the key management activities and decisions should occur.
Okay, this sounds like where this structure really becomes visible, the timeline.
Mm-hmm.
Can you walk us through these 7 processes? How do they flow?
Sure. They generally follow a chronological sequence. It all starts before the project is even given the green light, with a process called starting up a project, or SU.
Starting up a project, SU, so this is pre-project.
Essentially, yes. It's a very short, sharp phase. Its aim is to do the bare minimum necessary to answer the question, do we have a viable and worthwhile project here? Does it align with strategy? Who would be involved? Is it feasible? It prevents wasting effort on initiating projects that shouldn't proceed.
Okay, so SUs is the initial filter. If a project idea gets through that.
And then it moves into the next process, initiating a project, or IP.
IP. This sounds more substantial.
It is. This is where the real foundational planning happens. The IP process is where you create the key document called the Project Initiation Documentation, or PID.
The PID, I've heard of that. What's in it?
It's the project's blueprint. It defines the justification, the detailed business case, the scope, the quality requirements, the risks, the management approaches for all the practices, and crucially, the plan for the first delivery stage. It pulls everything together so the board can make an informed decision to actually authorize the project.
Okay, so SU is the check, IP is the detailed planning or proposal. What's happening at the board level while this is going on?
Good question. The project board, the highest level of project governance, operates within the Directing a Project Process, or DP.
DP, and that runs throughout.
Yes, DP runs from the very start, even before SU really kicks off, right until the project is closed. It's the process the board uses to make those key decisions. Authorize initiation, after SU, authorize the project itself, after IP, authorize each subsequent stage, provide direction, and respond when the project manager escalates an exception. It's their oversight role.
Okay, so SU, IP, and DP get us to the point where the project is approved and planned. Now we actually start building stuff, right?
Yeah. Exactly. Now we enter the cycle of delivery stages. The project manager spends most of their day-to-day time operating the controlling a stage process, or CS.
CS. This is the project manager's main job during delivery.
Pretty much. CS is about assigning the work to the teams in work packages, monitoring the progress of that work, managing the risks and issues that crop up within the stage, taking corrective action if needed within tolerance, and reporting progress regularly to the project board.
And the team's doing the actual work, the specialists.
They interface with the project manager through the Managing Product Delivery Process, or MPD. This process is about accepting a work package from the PM, executing that work, creating the required products, and delivering them back to the PM, ensuring quality checks have happened. It's the bridge between the management level and the specialist delivery level.
Okay, so CS manages the stage, MPD delivers the products within it. What happens at the end of a stage? You mentioned stages are key control point.
Absolutely critical. This is where the Managing a Stage Boundary Process, or SB, comes in.
SB. Okay, what does this do?
SB is the process that ensures those principles of managed by stages and continued business justification are actually upheld. Just before a stage is due to finish, the project manager uses the SFB process to do several things.
Like what?
They review how the current stage went, report on its performance, they update the overall project plan, the business case, and the risk register based on what's happened, and crucially, they create a detailed plan for the next stage.
And they present all that to the board.
Yes. Using the DP process, the board reviews this information, the performance of the last stage, the plan for the next, the updated justification, and decides, do we authorize the next stage? Does the project still make sense? Should we continue? It's that vital go-no-go decision point.
Okay, that stage boundary process sounds really important for control.
It is. It's the heartbeat of PRINCE2 control during delivery.
So we cycle through CS, MPD, and SB for each delivery stage. What happens when the final products are done?
Once all the planned products have been delivered and, importantly, accepted by the users, we move into the final process, closing a project, or CP.
CP. Time to wrap things up.
Exactly. CP handles the formal handover of the products to the operational environment, BAU, confirms they've been accepted, ensures any remaining issues are dealt with, evaluates the project's overall performance against the PID, and makes sure those final lessons are captured, fulfilling the learn from experience principle one last time.
SU, IP, DP, CS, MPD, SB, CP. That covers the whole life cycle.
That's the flow. And remember the fifth element tying it all together.
Right, the project context.
Yes. This isn't a separate activity, but the overarching idea that you apply all of the principles, the practices, the processes involving the people in a way that is specifically tailored to the project's unique environment, making sure the whole structure is genuinely fit for purpose for this particular project.
Let's dig a bit deeper into that context idea, especially the organizational side. You said PRINCE2 needs clear roles, but it doesn't dictate a specific company structure.
That's right. It's very adaptable. Whether your project is purely internal or a complex setup with external customers and suppliers, PRINCE2 focuses on ensuring the right perspectives and accountabilities are represented in the governance structure. It doesn't care so much about job titles on an org chart.
So what are these core roles or perspectives it insists on?
It identifies 4 core roles or relationships that must be covered to provide effective governance. Now, in a very small project, one person might wear multiple hats, but the responsibilities associated with each perspective still need to be fulfilled.
Okay, what's the first perspective?
First is the business perspective. This is typically represented by the project executive role on the project board.
The executive. Okay, what do they do?
The business perspective is responsible for commissioning the project in the first place, providing the overall governance, ensuring the project stays aligned with the organization's strategy, and ultimately making sure the project delivers value for money and achieves the benefits outlined in the business case. They hold the purse strings and the ultimate accountability.
Right. In a commercial deal, this would be the customer, basically.
Often, yes. The customer paying for the project usually holds that business executive accountability.
Okay, business perspective. What's second?
Second is the user perspective. This is represented by the senior user role on the board.
The senior user. Who are they?
The user perspective represents those who will ultimately use the project's products to achieve the benefits. Maybe they'll operate the new system, or work in the new building, or maintain the delivered equipment.
Why are they so important on the board?
They're crucial because they specify the needs the product must satisfy, they define the quality criteria, and they are ultimately responsible for demonstrating that the expected benefits have been realized after the project delivers. They have to accept the product as fit for purpose.
Okay, makes sense. Business, user. What's the third key role?
The third core perspective is the supplier, represented by the senior supplier role on the board.
Senior supplier, so the people building the thing.
Essentially, yes. The supplier perspective represents the skills, expertise, resources, and capacity needed to actually design, develop, build, and deliver the project's products. They represent the how-to capability and technical feasibility.
So, business, why and is it worth it? User, what does it need to do and will it work for us? And supplier, can we build it and how?
That's a great summary. Those 3 perspectives form the project board, providing direction and control. And PRINCE2 also defines the role of the project manager, who manages the project day-to-day on behalf of the board, operating within those tolerances.
You mentioned one person might cover multiple roles in small projects.
Yes, absolutely. On a tiny internal project, the same manager might be the executive, the senior user, and the senior supplier. But they still need to consciously consider the project from all 3 distinct viewpoints when making decisions. The perspectives must be covered.
Okay. And this structure naturally adapts to different commercial situations, like projects within bigger programs or with lots of contracts.
It does. A project might be a standalone thing or just one part of a much larger program or even a portfolio of changes. PRINCE2 can be scaled up or down. And in a commercial setting, you might have the main customer, business, maybe several user groups with different needs, and potentially multiple external suppliers under different contracts. The PRINCE2 organization practice has to be tailored to clearly reflect the specific contractual rights, duties, and reporting lines in that scenario.
So the level of control and formality for managing an external supplier contract would be very different from managing an internal team.
Absolutely. The principles remain the same, but the application, the tailoring, changes significantly based on that commercial context.
Which brings us back to delivery methods again. You said PRINCE2 is agnostic. It has to manage different ways of working.
Yes, and this is vital for its relevance today. It can provide the management wrapper for fundamentally different ways of delivering the actual products.
Like the traditional approach.
Right. First, the linear sequential approach, often called waterfall. Think traditional engineering or construction. Steps happen in a strict sequence. Design fully, then build fully, then test fully. Stage planning tends to be very detailed up front because major change isn't expected or easily accommodated.
Okay. Then the opposite end.
The iterative incremental approach, very common now, especially in software development or R&D. Here, the work happens in repeated cycles, maybe called sprints or time boxes. You build the bit, get feedback, build the next bit, and the product evolves through these iterations.
It's like agile methods often used.
Exactly. PRINCE2 can manage projects using agile delivery at the team level. And thirdly, there's the hybrid approach.
A mix of both.
Yes, increasingly common. You might have an overall project structure that's quite linear, maybe for governance, funding releases, or rolling out the final product across an organization. But within that structure, the actual development of the core product might happen using iterative, agile techniques.
So PRINCE2 provides the stable outer framework, allowing agility within.
Precisely. Its processes, especially that, managing a stage boundary process, provide the control points to manage any of these delivery approaches effectively.
But all this flexibility hinges on tailoring it correctly. If the principles are the must-dos, how does tailoring actually work? What levers can you pull?
Tailoring is about adjusting the application of the method, guided by that seventh principle. It means consciously deciding how much PRINCE2 is appropriate for this specific project. You can adjust several things.
Like
the governance arrangements. For a simple project, maybe the executive also acts as the senior user. You combine roles. For a complex one, you might need multiple senior users representing different groups.
Okay, roles can be adjusted. What else?
The formality and level of detail in documentation. A quick internal project might use an email as a highlight report. A major public infrastructure project will need incredibly detailed, formally signed off documents for everything.
Right. Scales with complexity and risk.
Definitely. You also tailor the number and length of management stages. A short project might only have 2 stages, initiation and 1 delivery closure stage. A multi-year project will have many stages, perhaps aligned with financial years or key technical phases.
And the controls themselves.
Yes, adjusting the project controls is key. How often does the project manager need to report progress?
Right.
Weekly? Monthly? How tight are the tolerances for cost and time? Plus minus 5%, plus minus 20%. How rigorously do you apply the change control procedure? All these are tailoring decisions.
Okay, this is all making sense conceptually, but let's make it really concrete.
Yeah.
Let's use those 4 scenarios from our sources to see how tailoring, context, and delivery methods actually play out in practice.
Yeah, these are great examples. They really show PRINCE2 acting as that adaptable management layer on top of different kinds of specialist work.
Right. Scenario 1. Data knowledge. And what's the setup here?
Okay, data knowledge is described as an internal project within a big data analytics company. It's simple, only 3 months long, and the goal is to build a new internal resource management solution, basically. Some software and reports.
Internal, simple, short software. What does that tell us about tailoring and delivery?
While being software, they've chosen an iterative incremental delivery method. Makes sense for developing a system. The tailoring likely involves simplifying the organization, probably combining roles on the board since it's internal.
But do they still use PRINCE2 stages?
Yes. Crucially, they use the stage structure for control. The high-level plan described shows this clearly. Stage 1 is initiation standard PRINCE2 startup. Here they define the product backlog and the minimum viable product, or MVP, using agile terminology within the PRINCE2 planning framework.
Okay, and the delivery.
Stage 2, the main delivery stage, is then structured into 4 sequential time boxes. These are the iterations where the actual software development happens, maybe 2-week sprints.
So PRINCE2 provides the overall control for the stage and manages the inputs and outputs of those iterative time boxes.
Exactly. The project manager, operating under the controlling a stage process, CS, manages the work within those 4 time boxes. They monitor progress, handle issues, but the key PRINCE2 control point is at the end of stage 2.
The stage boundary.
Yes. Before closing, the PM uses the Managing a Stage Boundary, SB process. They have to assess the overall success of the 4 time boxes against the plan, recheck the business case, did we deliver the MVP value, and then formally submit the results and a closure recommendation to the board, using DP for approval. PRINCE2 controls the boundaries and the overall justification.
Got it. A light-touch PRINCE2 wrapper around an iterative delivery. Let's contrast that sharply with Scenario 2, Lewistown City Council, Sam.
Okay, this is the other end of the spectrum. Lewistown Council is building a new shopping center. It's described as highly complex, part of a larger portfolio of council projects running over multiple financial years, with big challenges around building on a historical site and minimizing disruption.
Complex, long, infrastructure, public sector. Sounds like classic PRINCE2 territory.
Absolutely. This screams linear sequential delivery. The council and the main construction contractor require it. High formality needed.
So how is PRINCE2 applied here? Which principles are key?
Here, the principle of managed by stages will be rigorously enforced. Because it spans financial years, the stages are probably aligned with budget cycles, forcing the board, using DP, to apply that continued business justification principle very formally at each major funding gate. Do we commit the next X million pound?
And the stages themselves would be sequential.
Totally sequential based on the work. The plan shows clear, distinct stages like design, then site preparation and construction, then testing and inspections, then finally demobilization. You can't overlap those meaningfully in this context.
What about tailoring the practices?
The tailoring here would focus on robustness. The organization practice will be complex due to the contracts between the council, customer business, and the main contractor, supplier, and maybe subcontractors. Quality and risk practices will demand extensive formal documentation, audits, and checks because of the scale, the public money involved, and the physical risks. Much heavier than the data knowledge project.
Makes sense. Heavy structure for a heavy project.
Okay, scenario 3. FindDef. This is fintech company, FindDef, launching 3 new cybersecurity products as part of a major transformation program called FindDef2.
Right. FindDef is interesting because it's described as a hybrid.
Hybrid. How so?
Well, the overall program getting these 3 products defined, developed, launched into the market, and successfully transitioned into business as usual. Support that's managed in a relatively structured, possibly linear way. There are high-level stages focused on things like overall design, integrated testing, and phased market deployment.
Okay, so the big picture is managed sequentially, but the products themselves. The actual development of each of the 3 cybersecurity products is done using an iterative incremental approach. They probably have agile teams building features, testing, getting feedback, aiming for minimum viable products, MVPs, for each one.
So PRINCE2 manages the whole transformation, including the interfaces between the products, the market launch sequence.
Exactly. The plan described shows this layering. It mentions stages moving from initiation and high-level design, then through iterative development cycles within stages, then soft launches, maybe beta releases, culminating in full market launches and handover to the BAU support teams.
That sounds like a complex control challenge for the project or program manager.
It is. They have to ensure the iterative work happening on the 3 separate product streams stays aligned with the overall strategic goals and the timeline of the transformation program. The plan's practice here needs to integrate both those high-level sequential milestones and the detailed time box or sprint planning for the delivery teams.
So PRINCE2 provides the overarching stability and governance for the business change,
while still allowing the technical teams the flexibility and speed they need using iterative methods. It's a common and powerful combination.
Okay, one scenario left. Scenario 4. Now by the. This is different again. A not-for-profit organization launching a 6-month awareness campaign. The key characteristic mentioned is their low project management maturity.
Right. The low maturity is the driving factor for tailoring here. Because the organization doesn't have strong internal project management processes or experience, they need a more formalized, structured start to build that capability.
So tailoring here means more PRINCE2, not less.
In certain areas, yes, especially at the beginning. The scenario explicitly states they hired an external experienced project manager. Part of their role is not just to run the project, but also to set up the PRINCE2 framework appropriately, coach the internal sponsor, the executive, and mentor the newly appointed internal PM who will eventually take over.
So the focus is on getting the foundations right.
Absolutely. It ties directly back to the initiating a project, IP, process. Stage 1 for this project would likely be very focused on thoroughly completing the IP activities, creating a solid PID, developing a clear business case, defining roles very explicitly before any significant campaign execution work begins.
So whereas the data knowledge project might have done a lighter IP, now buy-in needs a heavier, more thorough IP to compensate for the low maturity.
Exactly. Tailoring here involves increasing the formality and rigor of the foundational practices, particularly organization, risk, and plans to provide the structure the organization currently lacks. The external PM's job is to ensure the principle of defined role and responsibilities is strictly followed from day 1, and to build that internal capability. It's PRINCE2 as a capability building tool as much as a delivery tool. #tag outro.
Okay, we've really covered a lot of ground there. From understanding why projects are different through the 7 targets, the 5 integrated elements, principles, people, practices, processes, context, and seeing how tailoring makes it work in very different scenarios. It's clear that when applied properly, PRINCE2 offers some significant benefits. It's not just bureaucracy for its own sake.
No, definitely not. If we were to summarize those core benefits, what stands out?
Well, first you said it's proven. It's not theoretical. It's built on decades of real-world best practices from countless projects globally.
Right. It captures what works.
Second, it's fundamentally universal and flexible. As those scenarios showed, it really can be tailored to fit almost any project, large or small, simple or complex, waterfall or agile or hybrid.
That tailoring principle is key to its universality.
Third, it provides a common language. This seems really important. Everyone involved, the board, the PM, the teams, the stakeholders, have a shared vocabulary for roles, documents, processes, targets. That has to reduce confusion.
It really does. It gets everyone on the same page regarding expectations and responsibilities.
Fourth, it's inherently outcome-focused. That relentless link back to the business case, driven by the continued business justification principle, means you're always asking, why are we doing this? And is it still worth it? Not just, are we on schedule?
Keeping the focus firmly on delivering benefits and value.
And finally, you touched on this with the Now Bayou scenario. It promotes increased organizational maturity. By providing a structured way to manage projects and explicitly requiring learning from experience, it helps organizations get better at delivering change over time. It turns project management from maybe a chaotic art into a more repeatable discipline.
A very good summary of the key advantages.
So, thinking about our listeners, as they may be prepared to lead a PRINCE2 project or participate in one, what's the main thing they should take away from this deep dive?
Well, we spent a fair bit of time emphasizing those 7 principles, how they are non-negotiable obligations.
Right. If one is missing, it's not really PRINCE2.
Exactly. And the reality of actually running projects is, well, it's often messy, right? Resources are always tight, stakeholders are demanding, priorities shift. It takes real discipline to maintain that structural integrity, to actually live by those principles when the pressure is on.
Yeah, it's easy to talk about principles, harder to stick to them under fire.
Precisely. Which leads us to maybe a final provocative thought for you, the listener, to mull over.
Okay, let's hear it.
If we agree that the absolute core of PRINCE2 is ensuring the project remains worthwhile, that first principle, continued business justification, think about your own environment. Think about the most high-pressure project you've been involved in. Maybe there were strong political reasons or huge sunk costs creating pressure to just keep the project going, even when the original business case was looking shaky, maybe even dead.
Yeah, that happens. The too big to fail project.
Exactly. So the question is, how would you, or how could your organization, design its governance, its application of PRINCE2, particularly the directing a project process and the role of the executive to ensure there's an objective mechanism, and maybe, more importantly, the courage to actually challenge that justification, to potentially recommend stopping a project that's no longer viable?
How do you build in the discipline to kill a bad project early?
Instead of just letting it limp along to a painful, expensive, and ultimately value-destroying finish, answering that question honestly about your own context might be the true test of whether you're just using PRINCE2 terminology or actually embracing its core philosophy. That's something to think about.